Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to welcome you on behalf of the organizer to our, let's say, webinar about the dawn of hydrogen economy, recent developments and activities. This, let's say, webinar for tonight is the last one in a row where we started early in January this year, and now in, let's say, mid of April or close to mid of April, we have the last one, and every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, we tackle a different topic in the field of hydrogen. So thank you very much for being our guests in this time, and thank you very much to all the presenters and especially to the organizer to make this happen. As you might know, the last couple of webinars, we also try to tackle a little bit the area and tackle a little bit different countries to understand about the ongoing activities and the different projects, which are partly a little bit country specific. On this background, it's now my great pleasure to introduce our speaker for tonight, because tonight we have indeed a quite interesting program and very interesting presentations. First, we will have a presentation from Tobias Gerke. He is a member of the Fichtner Group, and he will give us about an update about the activities in Chile in South America, because there, as we will learn from him, hopefully in 1 or 2 minutes, there are a lot of activities ongoing in this country. Then we will move over to Morocco, where Dr. Samir Rashidi, so hopefully I pronounced it at least not completely wrong. I'm working on this. He will give us an update about the activities in Morocco, where also a lot of activities are ongoing at the moment, and I'm very excited to learn more what's going on there. Afterwards, we will have an update from Professor Amr El-Habani, however you spell it. Sorry for that. Sorry for my, let's say, unpoliteness that I misspelled the name. He's a professor at the Al-Shams University in Egypt, and he will give us an update about the activities in Egypt. And last but not least, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce Thorsten Schwab from GIZ. He will give us an overview about the International PDX Hub, where the different activities in different countries are a little bit coming together. This is what you can expect tonight, and therefore I'm very happy that you are here. And without spoiling or disturbing too much time, it's now my, let's say, task to give over to Tobias Gerke to present us the country report from Chile. So Tobias, the floor is yours, and we are very much interested in your presentation. Please go ahead.
So thank you very much. Good evening, Martin and Wolfram. Thanks for organizing this event and inviting us. I will quickly share my screen with you in order to start with the presentation and talk a little bit about that, what Chile is doing in the hydrogen economy. If you see my screen, please briefly raise the hand. So, okay, thanks, Martin. So here we go. I want to quickly go through, I shortened the agenda in order to cope with the time frame which is given. A brief introduction to what is Fichtner and what Fichtner is doing in the hydrogen world, to understand why I'm talking about Chile today. And then let's have a look into Chile's potential as an exporter of renewable energies, because this is what's all about. Fichtner is a German independent engineering consulting company. We are now 101 years on the market, family owned, based in Stuttgart, where the major engineering comes from. People say that Stuttgart in Germany is the cradle of the good engineering, where Mercedes-Benz, where Porsche, where Bosch and Fichtner were born, and we're working and exporting engineering services to the world. Fichtner is active in all the continents and all the countries, and we are specialized in energy activities, and especially in the hydrogen sector. What the topic is about today. We are quite active for now over 30 years. We have been working for the European Space Agency and the fueling test benches for the rockets which are going from Kourou to the space, where hydrogen, in that case gray hydrogen, is the fuel. But we work on all the little tiny pieces of the value chain and business models. We do a lot of support together with GIZ to governments, the shaping green hydrogen roadmaps for the different countries and situations. And we are active also in developing the sector and sharing information as for example, in this event. And we also do have the Fichtner Forum Hydrogen, which recently was in Chile. We had this enormous Fichtner Forum Hydrogen in Santiago in last March with over 200 participants as a showcase where the focus is nowadays. So thanks a lot for having the chance to talk about Chile. We have a lot of projects down there in this blue map. You can see the countries where Fichtner has been working on hydrogen projects. This is enough to tell and talk about Fichtner. So let's have a look to Chile. What is Chile's potential as an exporter of renewable energies? If we look into the hydrogen market today, we see that the gray hydrogen market is an active market, is existing market, and this is the first step where many developers tend to step in, where they say, okay, there is a potential to replace gray hydrogen by green hydrogen. But then we have an additional green hydrogen market, which is beyond that where hydrogen is nowadays. And this is what I've been saying, exporting renewable energy. If we look into what the possibilities of renewable energies are, we have a quite a severe disbalance in the market. This is just showcasing some regions. We have regions with low renewable potential and high energy consumption, which are marked in red, which is countries in Asia and Japan, but also Europe. And then we have countries where we have a high renewable potential with a quite low energy consumption overall. And these are countries like Australia, like many countries in South America, in Northern Africa. And it's not by occasion that my colleagues from Morocco and Egypt are today sharing here with us, because as Chile, also Morocco and Egypt are countries which are quite eligible to be exporters of renewable energies. And this is where hydrogen starts to play a major role in new value chain. If we see where renewable energy is coming from and how it is shared on the world map, we have in the upper left side in this map here, we can see the irradiation and the solar resource that we see. Obviously that in Australia there's a lot, in Northern America and on the west coast. And this red part, which is quite dark red, this is Chile. This is the northern part of Chile, the Atacama Desert. And then we have Africa as a very high irradiation region together with the Arab Peninsula. If we look on the wind map, again, the red and the dark part shown here are the high yields in wind. And then we have, again, in the southern part of South America and South Chile, in the Magallanes, we have a very high wind yield. So this is the renewable energy which somehow can be used in the regions where we have to decarbonize the industries, where we might need energy, renewable energy, but we do not have it in place. So this is why Chile is such a major player in trying to see what and how we can bring renewable energy from a low consumption country to the market. If we look now into Chile, this long country on the Pacific coast in Southern America, bordering to Argentina, basically. The country is over 5,000 kilometers long. And in the very northern part, what is put here as the Antofagasta region, which is basically the four first regions in the northern Chile, is the driest desert in the world, high irradiation, very good solar yield. Then we have here in the central part of Chile, which is much more Mediterranean climate, we have a good potential, not a high, but a good potential of hydropower, run-of-river plants. And as I said previously, in the Magallanes region, we have a very high wind yield. Chile has a great potential to increase the production. We now have already a very high level of energy production with solar and wind resources in the country, but Chile has the potential to produce around 60 to 70 times more renewable energy than it has as a known consumption. This is where it all starts to become an attractive market to produce something which allows to export and transport energy. And this is not by cable, but this might be or will be green hydrogen, and based on green hydrogen, other moleculars like ammonia, methanol, etc. So Chile has an enormous room to replace its own imported fossil fuels, and with this to decarbonize the own market. But this is a very small market in comparison to that, what is needed and required worldwide and what the potential of production is. So Chile is ranked on the first top of Bloomberg's NEF Climate Scope ranking as an attractive emerging market. And many investors, developers are looking into this market. And Chile claims to have the best conditions in the region by having a solid regulation, having a liberalized power sector, investing a lot in making the local market more attractive and facilitating export with infrastructure. So there is a vision of Chile where Chile wants to become a leader. They are quite ambitious. The previous government set up this role and this roadmap for green hydrogen, and the present government is continuing this on a very, very thorough and challenging way. Until 25, the supply of energy demand from renewables shall be covered up to 65%. Up to 25, they want to reach greenhouse gas emission maximum peak level. And after that, it shall be decreasing constantly. 2030, to want to achieve the greenhouse gas emission level of 95 megatons. By 2030, strategic plans for all countries with bases shall be in place. This is another important component of the energy and the hydrogen strategy. And those commitments we have in different regions, we also have it in South America and in Chile, reduce black carbon emissions to 25% from 2016 levels. We want to see by 2030 a supply of 80% of the energy demand for renewables. So there is a great investment needed to decrease or to improve from 65 2025 to 80 in 2030. By 2040, Chile wants to phase out all the 21 remaining coal power plants, and by 2050 they want to be carbon neutral, and this is legally binding. So there is a challenge for the local market, and this will go in hand that what we consider the export market. There have been a lot of investment, there have been a lot of developments which are promising and giving a footprint which allows to think that they can reach this. There's an enormous good climate for international companies investing already in Chile and developing projects. But all this expertise in hydrogen production cannot be compared to the existing expertise in renewables. The experience Chile has in renewables is outstanding, is good, is reliable, but what is coming from there downwards, so if we see this is existing experience, if you want to say so, in Chile with renewable energies, but the gray part of this picture, that's the new economy, that's the new value chain, which is linked to how to transfer this renewable energy into something which can be exported. So if we see on the map here, Chile is laying down because it's so long and that it does not fit to the page, but we in this part on the left side, this is the northern part where Peru is starting. The lower part of the country is the Pacific Ocean, and the upper part would be Argentina, just to give you an orientation. So we have, as we saw on the focus of the slides I showed before, in the northern part, in the Antofagasta region, there are already many large projects in development with a main focus on export of ammonia. There is one project who's focusing on producing ammonia for the explosives for the mining sector, and there are some minor off-taking promises for the mining sector for reduction of copper mainly. And then we have here in the south the very intensive development of wind farm-based ammonia production facilities, and also one methanol and power to X, or let's methanol to gas oil plant, which is developed in first phase already working. So having this position here, we see there are projects already in development in more or less early stages, but there is a good momentum to believe that Chile, though it's far away from the markets, has a good positioning. They claim to have the lowest LCOH, basically wind-operated plants in the south. As you know, PV plant, even if PV electricity LCOE of PV is lower than the wind LCOE, the LCOH with PV is higher because there are many hours where the plant is not working. But with the wind farm-based ammonia production, Chile is bidding to be one of the major players, and as they are developing fast, they have the momentum of the first on the market, or they hope to have it. So from this, and being short and precise and trying to cope with the time which is given, some points which are maybe crucial for the development of the projects in Chile is the necessity to have a policy which helps the developers and oblige the developers at the same time to join forces to develop joint infrastructure. There's a lot of discussions going on about the facilities, how to load ammonia and bring it on the ships. Not each project shall have its own port facilities, but they shall have shared facilities. There are discussions going on to have shared desalination plant facilities in order to provide water to the hydrogen production. And there are many things which are underworking and going on right now in these days. And there's a joint effort of many ministries and the developers. There's a need to increase the number of projects. There's a little threat, or we have heard nowadays, is going to the point that there is a little downstep in the development and focus of international developers due to the Tax Reduction Act in the United States of America. But this is something quite temporarily, and will, on the other hand, help to make the market grow and to help the market to start with the production and widen and enlarge the production of electrolyzers. That one. So there are good reasons why Chile shall be successful in the future and shall be a major player in the green hydrogen development nowadays. I hope I kept the time. Martin, thanks a lot.
Yeah, Tobias, thank you very, very much for this update about the activities in Chile. I mean, I have been aware that if you go to the south of South America, in Patagonia, on the Argentinian side, and in, let's say, on the other side, on the Pacific side, in Chile, that there are very favorable, let's say, renewable energy supply, but I was not aware that it's indeed so favorable. I mean, okay, that in the desert, we have good conditions. This is also what we learned from Morocco, what we learned from Algeria, what we learned from Tunisia. But I mean, I was not aware that, let's say, the situation is indeed very promising. I understood that you might have a problem, let's say, further down the road with your time frame. So I do not see any, let's say, major questions popping up so far. So if you're still there when we have the final round discussion, I would appreciate that. But if you're not there, so the world will still turn around, yeah, most likely, yeah, it will not stop. And with this, let's say, thank you very much again for taking the time. Thank you very much again for giving us this very interesting presentation about the situation there. And I do understood that, let's say, good engineers are coming from Stuttgart. And well, I did my PhD in Stuttgart, but I don't study there. So it might be that a little bit of the clans, you know, from Stuttgart is also coming up to Hamburg. From this point of view, thank you very much again. And if you're not there, I wish you a beautiful evening and thanks again. And then let's move further down. And now, ladies and gentlemen, mesdames et messieurs, senores and senoritas, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce to you Dr. Sami Rashidi. He is from Morocco, and he will give us an update about the ongoing activities in hydrogen in Morocco. Yeah, so Dr. Rashidi or Samir, the floor is yours. And we are very much interested in your presentation, and we are very happy to learn about the activities, what's all going on in Morocco. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Martin, for the kind introduction. Thank you so much for the organizer for the kind invitation. Also, I'm really happy to be among you today, and I am also apologizing again for not being able to make it for last week, given some family issues, and that are sorted out. Thanks God. So I have 15 minutes. I am told, so I need to go a little bit quick. So I have lots of slides, as all the researchers, lots of things to share, but I will leave, of course. I won't go through all the slides. I will leave the slides to the organizer to be disseminated among the viewers or the participants. That would be my pleasure. Just 2 words about my organization. I am heading the IRISEN, the Institute for Solar Energy and New Energies. It's a foundation, research foundation under the governance of the Ministry of Energy Transition in Morocco. And we have been created back in 2011 to support the policy of the government in terms of energy transition, especially on R&D and innovation. We have 2 main roles. We are playing the role of a funding agency. So we support research through calls for proposals and funding them. And also we are creating kind of unique R&D, applied R&D infrastructure. As you will see in the next slide, this is our first, what we call Green Energy Park. It's a platform dedicated to solar energy, PV, and CSP. And the idea, as you see in this drone picture, is really to be a sort of an accelerator of technology, and to be also complementary with the offer and the research that is carried out by the university, but also to make also a research that is applied and understandable and also usable by the industry. And this is the idea. We are developing 2. We have already another one on energy efficiency, energy storage, smart grids that are already done, and e-mobility. And we are now preparing a 3rd platform dedicated to green hydrogen and applications, green H2A. We have this, all these platforms are also a partnership between IRISEN and the University Mohammed VI Polytechnique in Morocco. And for green hydrogen, we would like also to play the same role, to have a sort of a technological platform dedicated to upscaling technologies on green hydrogen for the whole value chain, from the hybridization of renewables, also with the support of my colleagues in the other platforms, and also to go through the value chain of hydrogen, going from electrolysis, conversion of hydrogen, but also all the storage and logistical aspects of the value chain. We are indeed working lots on ammonia. We have already some projects ongoing, but we are also targeting other molecules such as methanol, or more advanced, let's say, liquid fuels such as kerosene and e-diesel. The idea, as I mentioned, is to be complementary and also to support the industry and the academia as well in terms of intermediate TRS technology within its level. And we have already started with some first activities. We have installed a small electrolyzer of 25 kilowatts capacity, alkaline, within the first platform. And the idea is to make it a tool for research, but also training and building capacity in Morocco on this subject. We have also organized lots of events and what we call Middle East and Africa Clean Tech Academy on the subject of hydrogen last year. And we are also supporting a flagship event called the World PTX Summit, which the 3rd edition will be organized end of June this year as well. The first project on R&D of green H2A is a 4 megawatt electrolysis capacity, 2 megawatts alkaline, 2 megawatts PEM, and 4 tons per day of ammonia production. And we have signed the EPC contract last week, and the commissioning will be last summer, and the commissioning will be done next year, hopefully by June 2024. We have also an ongoing project on PTL, in which also we have also German partners involved in the design and development of this pilot. The idea is also to be on a megawatt scale, probably around 3 to 5, and we are still looking for the design. Also for the molecule, we are targeting eco-rosane, but we could also see other molecules if the opportunity is better. We have also a project, an ongoing project on the feasibility of storing hydrogen in the salt covers. We have a capacity of salt covers in the west of Morocco. And in this project, we are also partners with some French and Spanish companies as well. I would like to go somehow quickly on the development of the thinking about green hydrogen in Morocco. We started with a study of the World Energy Council back in 2018, and then we have also done some homework in order to see what are the opportunities in Morocco. And already by 2017, 2018, Morocco was like shortlisted among other countries like Chile, like Saudi Arabia, as front runners and as countries that has lots of potential to produce competitive green molecules. And in a nutshell, this is somehow the synthesis of why Morocco could be a hub to produce low cost green molecules is, of course, thanks to the renewable resources. I will get to this back later. Also a strong political support at the highest level of the state. We have nice track record of renewables, approximately 4 gigawatts of renewables installed capacity, which is approximately 40% of the installed capacity in Morocco. Growing R&D infrastructure, a business case due to ammonia, for example, for the OCP, which is a leading company, a national company leading in fertilizers, and also strategic positioning with, I mean, compared to a dedicated or a very interesting and interested market, which is Europe. Since then, we have started from 2018 to do some homework, some studies, preliminary studies, etc., to see the opportunities, to know more about the technologies and also the market. And we have issued also all these initiatives also by the support of the GIZ, the German Cooperation Agency, and we have issued the Green Hydrogen Roadmap back in 2021, sorry, and that made Morocco the first African and Arab country who has published its roadmap. And we have also built in place some cooperation partnership with some EU members like Portugal, like Spain, like Netherlands, Germany, of course, and also some local governance, especially a national commission on green hydrogen, which is more public, and a green hydrogen cluster, which is more a private, let's say, club among the players of this value chain. The roadmap could be downloaded. I won't go into details. And of course, this roadmap has been prepared in 2019, 2020. That was before COVID. That was also before the Ukrainian crisis. So lots of assumptions should be reviewed, but at least as a disclaimer, if we have to review this roadmap, we will only shrink the dates and the milestones. We will be more aggressive on the milestones and also the days, given the increasing interest and the urgency of course the climate change, but also the urgency of the energy crisis that we are witnessing nowadays. I won't go into details. I would please leave this to your viewer. You could also have a glimpse on the website of the Green Hydrogen Cluster, and for the partners, private or also innovation partners that are viewing this slide now, they could also get membership in our cluster if interested. Now I will go very quickly. This is the third and last moment of my presentation. I will go through Morocco, through what we call the green hydrogen valleys, what you call probably in Europe green hydrogen valleys, but in Morocco we have a name that is more suitable probably, and also for my colleagues in Egypt and Tunisia and Algeria, what we call green hydrogen oasis, given the landscape. So this is Morocco, as you may know, and yeah, basically these are the 2 or 3 main pillars of green hydrogen. We have very nice solar resource, but also a very nice wind resource, because for green hydrogen we need both, not only solar. Some people, when they speak about the Sun Belt countries, they are speaking only about solar, but to have competitive molecules, green molecules, we need both because of the load factor, and we could get into these details in another time or in the Q&A session. The other point that is probably also limiting Morocco, which is a drawback, is the infrastructure, the ports. We don't have lots of ports. We have 4 really main, our big ports. But if we have also to investigate into this potential, huge potential into the south, we need to build infrastructure. And this is something, for example, that countries like Egypt or the Gulf or even Algeria are very advanced, because they are already an oil and gas countries that have lots of infrastructure, gas terminals, etc., which we could also learn from them as well. I am just putting this slide to mention the complexity of the value chain, but also the opportunity that this value chain is offering, especially for Morocco. And I mean, I am speaking in the name of Morocco today. The idea is that beyond the commodity, beyond the exports, beyond also the green molecule that will be used domestically, we are really seeing this revolution as an opportunity to industrialize more our country, especially in a clean way, in a decarbonized way. It's a value chain that will be quasi neutral in carbon for us, but also could create more jobs and value as well for a local development of industrial clusters within the country. So these are this is not official information, this is just some ideas of a researcher of our team on where could be some business cases or some first mover, let's say, hydrogen valleys, hydrogen oases in Morocco. The first one is Tangiers, which is to the north of Morocco. The mountain you see in the background of the picture is Spain. So there is 14 kilometers away from Spain. So this could be also a first transcontinental valley, hydrogen valley between Europe and Africa, between Morocco and Spain. And the business case here, or the use case, could be the bunkering, the maritime shipping. So the bunkering for the maritime, we have nice wind resource in Tangiers in the north of Morocco. We have nice solar resource as well. And we could build a case around mobility, but also maritime or shipping bunkering. Casablanca, which is the heartbeat of the Morocco industry, heavy industry. We have some steel, as I told you, electrochemical industry, some agro industry that are already using hydrogen, and also some capacity probably in the future to store big quantities of hydrogen as in the salt caverns in the region of Casablanca. Jorf Lasfar, which is a huge chemical complex, the biggest complex of producing phosphate-based fertilizers. And this is where our green hydrogen platform will be located. Our pilot units will be located here, and we are really proud of this because our pilots will be developed in industrial environments and also with industrial partners. So it's also good for us and for our research to be applied and to be taken for upscaling afterwards. And we have also, of course, some CO2 sources as well, very not very far from the platform, mainly the CO2 from the coal power plant. I know this is not politically correct somewhere as a source of CO2, but it's already there. We could use it, and it will neutralize also the coal power plants. There is also Al Ayoun to the south of the country, which is also a very nice site for phosphate production, fertilizers. We have lots of wind resource and, of course, nice solar, as you have seen in the previously. And Agadir and Dakhla, which is one, I think, in my opinion, we may argue with my colleague from Chile, but I think it's the best site in the world, next to Patagonia, or even more than Patagonia. Yeah, I'm just joking. But a very, very nice wind resource, because we have a steady wind approximately all the year. We have a kind of a net load factor of approximately 70% in the year, so which is really huge. Sometimes in some modeling tools, we don't even need solar for having a competitive hydrogen production. And we have a nice big harbor that is under construction now, approximately 1.2 billion euros worth of investments. I am finished. I'm sorry for being long. Just to say that Morocco is one of the best sites or the best countries to verify the feasibility of low cost or competitive green molecules. And I also want to mention that His Highness the King last November has really given his orientation to prepare a clear offer. It's a second level than the roadmap that has been published, to publish an offer what's Morocco is offering for green hydrogen. And we had really some nice announcements recently. First one is the OCP Group, as I told you, which is one of the biggest players in phosphate-based fertilizer, which has announced 1 million ton of green ammonia by 2027. Approximately, it represents approximately 4 gigawatts of renewable power and 2 gigawatts of electrolyzers. And another announcement that was made last January, it was by John Cockerill, which has announced a gigafactory of electrolyzers that will be constructed in Morocco with a private Moroccan partner. And this is also a nice way to see that this for a country like Morocco, and it's approximately the same thing for all our colleague countries, our brother countries. It's also an opportunity to get industrialized, and also in a win-win basis, in a green and decarbonized way. Thank you so much, Martin, and sorry for being long. I'm not sure if I have respected time.
Everything is fine. Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation about these lots of ongoing activities in Morocco. I mean, if I remember right, from last week, we had a presentation from Professor Ahmed Al-Salaimi from Jordan, and they also understand that Jordan is also very much on a pathway to green electricity. So they already have, if I remember right, about roughly 30% of green electricity into the grid. And they also see these emerging markets on hydrogen and on green energy as a, let's say, kind of engine or kinds of driver to, let's say, on one hand side, increase the income of the country, and also to support industrialization. So from that point of view, I'm really astonished how much you are already in the pathway to, let's say, green energy, and that you very much pushing this also from the governmental side. So thank you very much for that, and thanks a lot. And maybe before I come to Professor Amr El Habani, maybe only one short question which has been popping up, especially to you in Morocco. They said, may I ask if there are any projects under development on a CSP-based green hydrogen production, or is CSP too expensive that this is at the moment out?
I think CSP could play a role, and I will explain this later on if you allow me. But I think for the business case, we are really focusing on PV and wind. PV and wind. CSP could probably play a role in some less advanced technologies, like if, for example, we focus on high temperature electrolyzers in the future, then probably hybridization between CSP heat, not electricity, CSP heat and high temperature electrolyzers could be really good. And we have also some advances in research, like in DLR in Germany. They are working on direct production of green molecules from the sun, from the heat of the sun. So there is a project called DUSOL, I think that was closed last year by the DLR institute that you know. And I think there are lots of other projects that are running in the US to use really high temperature. And by high temperature, we're speaking that about 850 plus.
Okay. But if I understood you right, then your argumentation is that CSP might play a role in the future, but not today, because today it's at the end of the day too expensive. And if it plays a role, it might more likely play a role in the heat market, high temperature heat market, and not in the electricity market, because PV and wind is too cheap.
Yeah,
maybe this in a nutshell.
Yeah, in a nutshell, and probably to give another advantage for CSP is probably to use the most competitive component of CSP, which is thermal energy storage. And if you put PV, which is low cost, and thermal energy storage from CSP, which is also low cost and grid friendly. This is really important because it's different than battery. Then you could have a really nice combination.
Okay. So we will see. Okay, thanks a lot, and sorry for disturbing you. And now let's move further down to North African countries. So Algeria we had last week, and also from Tunisia we heard several times in this webinar. And now let's move to Egypt, and it's my great pleasure to welcome this beautiful gentleman, Professor Dr. Amr El Habani.
Okay.
Oh well, sorry, Amr. I don't
three
know
different pronunciations of the name. It's Ilban Hawi. That's as simple as that. But anyway, thank you, Martin. Ban Hawi. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Martin. Thank you. Everybody, I'm very pleased. I'm with you this evening for this very nice webinar, and I've participated last year. And I was thinking about this when I was preparing my slides, in what kind of additions I would add. Of course, we have. I'll show you in the presentation that we had some few developments in last year, particularly around COP27 that was held in this country. So yeah, I'm happy to start the presentation. I wouldn't take more time from you.
Okay.
So if I can just share the screen, let me see.
So hopefully it should work out, but maybe till you share the screen, I just would like to introduce you. Professor Dr. Amr El Habani is from. Still didn't work. There's a problem in my brain. Yeah. Sorry for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's from Al Shams University in Cairo. And he's a professor there, and he's working also in energy. So from that point of view, he is the best person we can find to present the situation. So, Amr, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So do you all see my screen? Yeah.
We don't see the full screen yet.
Let me check. I don't want this.
If you go to View, and then in View you might have full screen. Yeah.
Okay. Let me first of all do. I don't know why the PowerPoint is not showing. One moment. It happened last time as well. So I'll go to share screen, and then right there it is. Good. So now I need to do presentation mode.
Exactly.
Right.
Just click on the presentation mode.
Yeah. Is it good now?
This
is not the one that we should be doing, yeah?
Yeah. Then you have to go on display settings.
Yeah, where's
and
display settings?
Display setting is in the middle on the upper part. Display settings, and there you have to let's say click the part swap presenter and viewer slide through.
Yeah, there we go. Good.
Yeah. Okay, now it should work. Okay,
now it should work. Fantastic. Thank you. So I'm Amr Ben-Hawi. I'm from the faculty of Department of Mechanical Engineering in Ain Shams University, and I lead the Energy Technology and Climate Change Laboratory. And I'm today going to give you a brief on what we have in Egypt as far as hydrogen developments, green hydrogen developments in particular. Quickly, what the H2 economy in Egypt is. We have the majority of, let's say, hydrogen being consumed in the industry, particularly for as a chemical, whether it is in steel or in the fertilizer business. Also, you see here that the majority is in fertilizers, and then you have steel, some in the oil and gas, of course, refining and petrochemical, predominantly it's the SMR, steam methane reforming technology, that is used to, of course, separate hydrogen from natural gas. This sector is, or let's say the industrial sector is now the leading, let's say, sector in using green hydrogen specifically for the fertilizer. And I will show you now that this is the single project that we have already have commissioned in Egypt, and it's driven, of course, by of course, the overall climate change goals and greenification of the fertilizer business around the world. Now, how is it seen at the moment? Well, hydrogen predominantly in Egypt is being seen as a good vehicle for exporting energy to different markets, specifically Europe. We had some interest as well in other let's say uses such as bunkering, and I'll come to this very soon. Locally, of course, before the war in Europe, we had I mean the Ukraine-Russian war. Electrolysis was way too expensive than natural gas cracking. However, the picture now has changed, and of course the things are different, and electrolysis is becoming competitive. The possible targets in the Egyptian industries are again chemical and fertilizers. This is seen as let's say the second important target after, of course, export of electricity, of hydrogen. And I 100% agree that we are located in a part of the world where renewable resources are very good. And of course, there are plenty of nice chances to export hydrogen. However, and I will show you, in very briefly later, that we have some deficiencies in understanding exactly what the true cost of hydrogen is. I think countries like Egypt, Morocco, and the rest, who are, in fact, everywhere in the world, we still need to, I mean, we have this sort of, let's say, interest in this industry and interest in, of course, exporting, but I think we need to appreciate and understand the entire process. It's not when we produce hydrogen, green hydrogen, it's not only about having nice wind and solar. We need to think of the transport infrastructure. We need to think of the conversion to ammonia and maybe others, whether it is liquefied hydrogen or let's go for ammonia. And then we need to also to think of what happened on the other side, where we then again extract hydrogen. So it is something that I'm sure that the knowledge is sort of had been let's say the unequal from the different parts of the world. Some parts are more knowledgeable than others, but it is something that would definitely let's say put a heavy weight on the pricing of hydrogen in places like Egypt. I'll come to this immediately. I'm explaining exactly what I mean by this now. Now, there is some sort of limited interest from private sector, because the private sector at the moment does not see legislations towards reducing the, let's say, the natural gas consumption for heating. Still, at the moment in Egypt, the natural gas is not on par with the prices that you see around the world. It is subsidized because, you know, it goes without saying, of course, that once you start to sort of raise the prices on the manufacturing sector in Egypt, you know, the situation that we already have at the moment will become worse, and it is something that, of course, nobody is politically ready to take. However, it is we're very lucky that the there's some sort of subsidized programs for natural gas, because that, of course, would mean that our electricity bills wouldn't rise that much. The majority of our electricity in this country is coming from natural gas-fired power plants. Right. So, how good would we be for hydrogen export? I think there is a massive opportunity in this country. We have very nice and excellent proximity to export markets, specifically Europe. And that explains, of course, why the European Union had sort of struck an agreement with the Egyptian government in COP27 to support by up to, I would say maybe 30 billion euros, or 35 million euros, I'm sorry. 35 million euros so for some sort of grants and loans to help set up the export to hydrogen industry and plants, power plant and hydrogen plants. Now, also, there's some sort of nice proximity to Egypt's high quality renewables in terms of wind and solar. And the project, if it becomes available, of course, would need to see developments of new renewable energy plants, and that has to sort of we need to put the if we are exporting to Europe, then we have to think of the Renewable Energy Directive in Europe, which means that we need to have some conditions by which we export and produce and export hydrogen. I'll come to this very soon. Now, activities, we have plenty of memorandum of understandings that were announced publicly. It's all over the place in the news. However, the action on the ground is pending the closure of a solid business model. It's very important. Who is going to buy the hydrogen and for how much? And if we, let's say, identify off-takers, which is pretty much the case in most of the memorandum of understanding that were done, it is still pending the actual cost of hydrogen. And the reason why there isn't a particular cost of hydrogen at the moment announced is that there is still some debate in the government of how would we sell and wheel a renewable electricity from the place of its generation to the place of its consumption in the green hydrogen power plants. EBRD, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, is working at the moment with Egypt to come up and formulate a hydrogen strategy. And it is as well found on the website of EBRD. Now, the good thing about here in Egypt is that one good thing in this sector, in this program in green hydrogen, is that in November last year, we have the 100 megawatt electrolysis plant already commissioned. And this will supply green hydrogen to EBEC, which is part of it's a fertilizer plant that belongs to a Fertiglobe company, and Fertiglobe is one of the huge fertilizer traders in the world. This is this is quite good for us here, in that it is a demonstration of an actual plant that is working on the ground. It is of course Egypt's first. At the moment, the agreement was that the renewable electricity would be supplied to this plant through the grid. However, the agreement on the price of electricity for this particular power plant, or this particular hydrogen plant, is not yet agreed. It's not yet settled, and it is something that is being debated now. The good thing of COP27 is that it was the reason why this plant had been gone on acceleration to be built and put as a demonstrator. And I think at least it made things move on the ground, which is very good. We also have other agreements with Siemens Energy, and on top of that, even the German government the German Chancellor, I remember in COP27 or slightly before it, I think, came here to sort of agree some sort of or make some agreements with his Egyptian counterpart. Also, the Italian ENI or ENI, the petroleum company, also had made an agreement to study. All these MOUs are for studying and for, of course, coming up with a business case. So this is one here. It's an MOU between Egypt and the European Union, the one I was just talking about, and that was held in COP27. Now, last two slides, I'm just going to give you my thoughts on what's happening, and I think I've already mentioned some. Now, of course, as you know, with green hydrogen, we need to construct separate renewable energy plants. To jump quickly to the other important aspect in this sort of link between renewables and green hydrogen is that we have to respect the conditions of additionality and time stamping, which means that if we assume that we are going to use wind or solar power plants to provide the green electricity through the national grid, then we have to ensure that of course, we need to build new plants, not rely on old ones or on existing ones. And also we have to ensure that at the same time of production of electricity, we produce hydrogen. And if there is no electricity produced from renewable plants, then we cannot use grid electricity and sort of do some aggregations and sort of these kind of calculations at the end of a year or even in a day. Until this changes, this is the kind of situation that is there. And of course, that means that transmission charges and wheeling charges would be something that the government would have to think and agree with the developers of these plants. Now, since the major focus is on exporting energy via the stored hydrogen carrier, long-term take-off agreements are key, of course, to enable fast deployment of green hydrogen projects. And indeed, until the local markets, of course, learns how to do these kind of agreements. If there is legislation that, of course, promotes and encourages the private sector in Egypt locally to use green hydrogen. I quickly covered RED II. Now, there are as well at the moment interesting discussions on. In fact, some memorandum of understanding are not going through electrolysis, but they're going through gas to think of biomass gasification to produce green hydrogen from biomass gasification from this route. And as you know, of course, that with green hydrogen from the sea, we need to do desalination. So the cost of hydrogen would need to include the cost of green water as well. And this is something that we have as well to sort of consider. Also with that, we have to consider that producing hydrogen in a flexible manner is different than producing hydrogen in a steady state manner, which means in flexible manner, you probably may need to have a larger electrolyzer capacity to, of course, take, let's say, of course, unless you do energy storage, but you would need producing flexibly is different than steady state. That would impact, of course, the sizing of your electrolyzers. Maybe we can maybe cover this in a different presentation. And finally, Suez Canal Bunkering Hub. This is a great initiative. Maersk, as you see here in this slide, had come to Egypt to sort of, again, sign an agreement to study the potential of a bunkering surface hub where green ammonia would be used to fuel any of their ships going through the Suez Canal. And that's it. Thank you so much. And please, I welcome any questions. I'm sorry if I've taken more time than I should. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Amr, for this very nice update about the situation in Egypt. And I do understood that, let's say, at the end of the day, it's the question of how cheap is the green electricity which is available. And there, I also understood that on one hand side, you need electricity to provide hydrogen, and in parallel, you have a demand for green electricity anyway inside the country, and there you have to find a kind of compromise. Yeah. And this is the same what basically also, let's say, Ahmed Al-Salami said last week from Jordan. And if I interpret what Dr. Sami Rashidi said, I mean, it's also a similar situation what we do see in Morocco. Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's also the same situation in Chile. Yeah. Because they have the same, but there it's a more fortunate situation because they do have already quite a lot of hydropower in the south. And therefore, the share of renewables is there already higher compared to a country like your one, where you're basically an oil exporting country, and there your energy system depends much more, as I guess, I would suggest, on oil. Nevertheless, let's come back to this in the final discussion and now come to the last presentation of today and the last presentation in this webinar in this winter term. It's my great pleasure to introduce Thorsten Schwab. He is from the PDX Hub, and he will give us a wrap-up about these activities which are driven or organized by GIZ. So, Thorsten, the floor is yours, and we are very much interested in your presentation. So just go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Martin. Thank you for the invitation. Great honor to speak to all of you, and great honor to have the last presentation of this series. This is a wow. So let us see. Can you all see my screen? Good. Yes. Perfect. So let's jump right in, and I will just switch to the laser pointer. That's easier to show. So first, before we go into what the PDX Hub is, I would like to give you an understanding of what we at the PDX Hub understand as PDX, as Power-to-X. So we do have this background of, we often talk about decarbonization, and what it actually means in principle is substituting everything by renewable electricity. And we use that as it comes whenever possible, because every single further step would mean losses. So if we can use the electricity as it comes, perfect. If we cannot, if we really do need molecules, then hydrogen comes into play as a helper molecule. And we often hear so much about the hydrogen economy, but it's more than that. Hydrogen is just a central piece, but it's so much more. So hydrogen here comes into play, maybe as backup power, but also for some industries that can use it directly as in steel production, iron production. But usually we go some steps further and need higher aggregated molecules. In this case, we're still in the realm of decarbonization. With nitrogen, we can do ammonia, and of course, then the explosives and the fertilizer. And we have heard about that already today. The nitrogen necessary for that can come out of the air. That's relatively simple. So in the upstream side, you can see the sun as the main, as the principal source we have, some geothermal also, but sun, the water, and the ambient air for the swing absorption for the nitrogen. But what we really need, and if we want to phase out all the fossils, is hydrocarbons. So then carbon comes into play. And most often carbon is the restraining factor. So hydrogen, nitrogen, that usually can be produced almost anywhere, but carbon is a rare good. And especially if we phase out the fossil carbon and the fossil oil and gas, then all of a sudden carbon might become rare. So we have to have second thoughts on that. But this is the whole picture. So if we want to defossilize, because we cannot get rid of the carbon, and we want to supply all our demand sectors, which you can see here, then we might need to rethink some value chains. And what the PDX Hub is doing is to try and partner up with many countries to see how we can go about this, how we can get this defossilization done. So the PDX Hub was founded on that idea, And that was actually before the German national strategy on hydrogen. So the idea of defossilizing, and then they called it PTX at the time, that was in 2017 it was born, and then in 2019 the PTX action program of the former Ministry of Environment came about. And then at the COP25, Svenja Schulze announced the PTX hub, and we started our work in Berlin. And then a year after came the National Strategy for Hydrogen in Germany. And what is interesting is that in the same year, the Ministry of Economy joined with the Ministry of Environment to be together in the PTX hub and do something about that defossilization. Usually ministries, they do their thing, but in this case, they joined, they partnered up. This I thought was a very cool move. And then, as you know, with the elections in Germany, these ministries, many of the areas of these ministries joined in the new Ministry for Economy and Climate Action. So here we are in the same again. But there were several commissionings from the government, and so now the PTX hub is not a single project, but it's an agglomerate of various projects which work in various countries. Those are the countries we're active in today. We have heard from many of those already in this series. And the idea is to sustainably develop the economies as partners, whatever we can do to partner up. And this is not in the traditional sense of an off-taker or a supplier, but it is all tangled, it's all together, it's all woven together. To bring technology exchange and experience exchange among all these countries. So what does the PTX hub do? We are a knowledge and exchange platform. So we create networks and we bring together people, and we try to convey the best knowledge we can get our hands on about PTX and defossilization. Our leading principle is sustainability, and I'll come to that in a minute. But what we do pursue for now most is the capacity building, because we need a critical mass of people who understand the subject, and that globally. So that's one of the first interventions. First, bring together people. And you might have heard of the Women in Green Hydrogen Network, a very potent network of very influential and very bright women. And that was co-founded by the PTX hub in the very beginning and has now become somewhat independent. And I think they will go in full independency this or next year. And there is more, it says here 2,700 members, but I think that number already superseded 3,500. And there's a really cool speaker database also, which I wanted to point out, because usually in our sector, you see a lot of men and not many women on the panel. And here you can actually get in contact with very, very bright and very capable women to kind of equalize this a bit. So then we come to the trainings. We have conducted basic trainings about PTX in more than 30 occasions now, and I think in more than 20 countries. And it's about understanding what PTX and green hydrogen means. When I say PTX, I always include green hydrogen, as you saw in the picture. We are working on add-on modules because we see that countries have their individual narratives, and we need to focus in, zoom in on some sectors. But we are also building a trainer network. So we do have a train the trainer program, and there were 2 groups for now, and there will be some others, and all these trainers are connected in a network, and we have an active exchange and an active platform, so we can get the newest experience always into our trainings as fast as possible and see that we exchange not only knowledge but newest numbers, always people ask for money, which is maybe a little early in a stage so early in the TRL today, but these are important. So as soon as we get our hands on this, it is shared in the Train the Trainer network. And I can only encourage all the professors that are here to come to the next Train of Trainer events and join the network. And we're going to e-learning courses so we can spread the word to a broader mass of people. Another subject that was already mentioned today is certification, because it's important. Like, what do we do? What do we consider as green? Do we need correlation, temporal, geographical? Do we? What are these rules? And we saw that it's a hindering factor if you don't have a good grasp on certification schemes around the world. So we have a group focusing on this with some people in Brussels also. To see what's going on cutting edge. Then, as I said, sustainability is our leading paradigm, and we understand as sustainability as something holistic. So it's not only the question, is the renewable electricity really renewable, but it's a more broader view, and we try to avoid the tunnel vision only to carbon emissions also, but to see the Sustainable Development Goals as a basic set of objectives. And there we developed the so-called EESG framework. EESG stands for Environmental, Economic, Social, and Governance. And you can find it on our homepage. And the idea is that each of these 4 big dimensions has sub-dimensions which are a function of the context. So it's very different talking about sustainability dimensions and hence criteria in Atacama Desert, the Brazilian jungle, or an island in the Pacific. So these dimensions need to be adapted to the context. There is not a single gold standard, but there is a context-dependent gold standard. And this is why we need to consider these dimensions in each case. But please have a read on the homepage. You can find the whole framework. And I think it's an inspiring reading. And now, coming to the last part of the presentation, I would like to show you that we try always, when we partner up with the country, to zoom in on the uniqueness of each of the countries. And I brought you the example of Kenya, and I did not start with the solar potential or wind potential, and I on purpose left a map like that out. I wanted to show you that there's so many other aspects that can play a role. So first of all, of course, we can look at the country geographically and ecologically, how it is made of, and also what's the population, what is the density of the population in the country, and so on. The infrastructure, this is normal factors we can factor in for PTX phase-in, I would say. But then there's also other things like who are the neighbors, how are the how is the trading organized, which countries are friends, which countries might be not so friendly to a unique, a specific country, and how are all these workings with the perceived vocation of a population of a country. And if we find the right value chains and the right trading constellations, maybe we can find for each country a very interesting niche to ramp up PTX, where it's already economically viable and driven by the people in the country and not by an international entity. Now, looking further into what, for example, Kenya does, is you can see the exports and the imports. And by this, you can see what they actually know how to do already and what they like to do and what they maybe in the import side could become more resilient if it was substituted. And this gives us hints what other products, not only green hydrogen, could be interesting, and which value chains could be maybe greened by PTX. So here you can see as a second largest export product, the cut flowers. How could that possibly be an interesting sector for PTX and hydrogen? This is what we looked into, and we found out that cut flowers are flown to Amsterdam. And if you do the right cooling chain, you might be able to do it, and it is possible, with ships. And you can ship it instead of fly it to Amsterdam. If you have, for example, a good cooling chain in a cooling container that might work on a fuel cell with methanol. And there you have the case for a PTX application in a value chain that is already established and could achieve higher prices for the product in Amsterdam, because then it's a green product with all the whole value chain being green, and also would save money because shipping it is a lot cheaper than flying it. So this is an approach that is really bottom up and completely different than coming from the side of where is the best sun and where's the best wind. Both go together. Yeah, not one is better than the other, but if we can join this and find a good balance between the two, bottom up and top down, I'm convinced that we can phase in PTX quite nicely. And then as one of the last slides, there is the people's uniqueness and specialties in each country. So sticking with the example of Kenya, the payment system M-Pesa with SMS, paying money with your cell phone, or microcredits, or the decentralized energy generation and supply, or leapfrogging over line telephony going to mobile telephony directly. I'm convinced that many countries, especially the ones that do not have petrochemical infrastructure in place today, can leapfrog over the fossil pathways and go directly into a more modular, more decentralized, yet as big as possible, green hydrogen and PTX economy. So each country knows and owns their own narrative, their own story. And with this, I would like to close and encourage you to have a further look on our website and see what we can do together. Get in touch. Thank you.
Yeah, Thorsten, thank you very much for this very interesting presentation about the activities and the goals of the PTX Hub. So now we are at the end, let's say, and also already 8:15. And therefore, I would like to make the final round table quite short. So just, let's say, maybe one round between all the people which are still here. I mean, we have learned last week and this week that, let's say, a lot of countries are, let's say, on the way to, let's say, make the energy system more green, also with the goal to, let's say, at least open the window for, let's say, export of green energy. So I think one goes another, and I understood from you, Thorsten, that at the end of the day, North Africa, very much dominated by fossil fuel energy. They coming from the energy side because they're already used to export, let's say, energy, and other countries which do not export energy yet. There might be other export goods to pave the road towards an energy export. So if we look, for example, 10 years in advance, let's assume we are in the early 30s, when I'm already retired and enjoy my life, with a caipirinha on the sofa, on the chaiselong. Then the question is, what do you expect in these days, in 10 years from now, about, for example, the energy system and the ability to export in a relevant order of magnitude, let's say, green molecules from Chile, from Egypt, from, let's say, Morocco, and maybe, Thorsten, from your side, what do you expect then, let's say, that the world might look like from the countries where you have contact with? So maybe we can make a kind of, let's say, final statement about that, what you can expect and what you see the main challenges and what you think is the main driver which, let's say, pushes this development in the future. So if you agree to this, yeah, and then let's start with South America, yeah, Tobias, how do you see it?
I see a big chance if we have a sound regulation and an international standards in place, that we will and we shall have a very strict policy about CO2 emission, which is still kind of lacking in some parts of the value chain. Then we will have a major positive impact on the economies in both in Europe and in our region, and in the countries who are providing this energy export via molecules, via power-to-X. And there is a quite promising atmosphere. And I believe in 10 years, we will have an important portion of hydrogen running around the world in terms of ammonia and maybe also methanol, helping both the decarbonization in Europe and also in a ramp up of the economy in the countries which are producing like that. What Thorsten just exposed for Kenya is an excellent example of how local economy can benefit largely from these advantages.
But do you see that, let's say, based on the current, let's say, geopolitical situation, that we will have a situation that we have a, let's say, international agreed legislation on, let's say, the ban of fossil fuel energy?
Yes, in Europe will be leading this process within the next 5 to 10 years, and 10 years from now, there will be another picture, and we will have a clearly different matrix of energy supply in our industry, in our daily consumption, and in the ways energy is coming to us. That I'm convinced of that.
Okay, let's keep our fingers crossed. We will see. Okay, then let's move to Morocco. Sami, what do you see in the next, let's say, 10 years from now? The role of Morocco and the development of the energy system and the ability to export green molecules from your country to the rest of the world.
Yeah, thank you, Martin, for this last round. Indeed, for Morocco, I think we are quite positive and optimistic. We have also a big ambition to decarbonize or to defossilize. I like the term of my colleague, our economy, and we let's say, if in terms of challenges, I would say we need to.
Well, now he looks to be frozen, huh?
More infrastructure. I'm sorry, do you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you again, yeah.
Okay, I will deactivate my video to save some bandwidth. So I told you the idea is also to face some challenges like infrastructure, like financing of large-scale projects, because this is the big challenge, and also upscaling of technology, which is a challenge not only for Morocco but for all the let's say the stakeholders. And last but not least, I would like also to convey a message that there is a room for everyone. I think we are all thinking like a competition configuration, but if you see the figures, we are speaking about thousands of gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity worth of hydrogen to defossilize our economies, and each country could I mean at maximum cope with some 100 of gigawatts. So we need everyone around the table. So this is also a message I would like to convey, and therefore we need to collaborate together importing countries with other importing countries, and also importing countries with exporting countries as well, and exporting countries among themselves as well, in order to reduce the gap and deploy very quickly at scale this economy.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I fully agree personally that, let's say, the challenge ahead of us, they are so huge and so substantial for us as, let's say, humans, that, let's say, we only can solve this together. And therefore, I honestly have a little bit of problem that at the moment we are, let's say, making war between each other and destroying resources where we would need these resources to, let's say, to change or to further develop or transform our energy systems towards a more, let's say, renewable or more environmental sound energy system. So this is indeed what I think a great pity and a great disadvantage what we see at the moment. But nevertheless, this is only the opinion of a small professor from a small university. And now let's move to a big professor from a big university, from Al Shams University. How you see it from the Egyptian side, Amnur?
Okay. No, I'm quite small, but I think in my opinion, or if you ask me this question, I it's difficult really to answer. I find it very difficult to answer now, because it's, yes, as far as Egypt is concerned, yeah, there's a kind of a very ambitious plan to move to maybe 40%, or I think, yeah, so some sort of 42% of the grid being electrified by renewable resources. Fair enough, that's all very good. But it's what I see personally is that it's quite difficult to have let's say draw a single line and say that by, for example, to 2050 we will have no fossil fuels at all whatsoever. I think I believe in transition. I believe that there will be some sort of transition that happens. Of course, some of the financing problems would need to be sorted out before we go into a wide implementation of renewable electricity without any fossil fuels. I see now that there's some sort of push for, or let's say, ideas for carbon capture and storage that already is being done. Specifically, if you want to decarbonize very fast and to not wait until you get a favorable levelized cost of electricity from renewable resources in different, plus storage, of course, in other places in the world. So I think, yes, with the push, with the people believing in climate change, with people seeing the impacts of climate change, and they are quite severe in Egypt, things can be done. But we also want to ensure that even if we go through the transition route, we do it in a just way. We do it in a way that can still allow societies to prosper without having heavy penalties and then having them, search around and what can we do with all the let's say the infrastructure that we have already invested in, for example, like places in Egypt, if you know what I mean. So yeah. I don't know the answer. I mean, I think transition is the answer, but how we do it, how fast we do it, we have all learned in the last few, let's say in the last year, that just a tiny little thing, a political problem can wreak havoc in many places in the world. So, and that can change everything. It can change plans. I mean, Egypt had this massive plan of, doing these renewable projects. I wanted to speak about these, but of course we didn't have time. But I think now everything is put on, we need to put bread on the table before we sort of look at fancy wind and solar projects. So it's quite difficult.
Well, I mean, this is right. I mean, you always see this kind of up and downs in these developments. Yeah. But I also have seen that, let's say, in the last couple of years, at least here in Europe and in Germany, we have seen quite a lot of severe weather, let's say, catastrophes, like flooding and drought. And this pushes indeed a little bit the development, what we see at the moment. And therefore, this might also be something which is happening, because if I understood the, let's say, statistics about the weather developments in recent years, we have seen indeed a quite significant increase in temperature. And in hot countries like your country, I mean, then it's even hotter, you know, as it is already. And I mean, we have the let's say, from the German weather service, there has been this climate press conference, which is typically every March every year. And they claim that in Germany, we have already 1.7 degrees C in average above pre-industrial times, and in global average, it's 1.1. And so there's clearly differences, and therefore I think there is coming more pressure on, let's say, on the table, and more pressure that something has to happen. But nevertheless, I don't want to make any, let's say, statement. Sorry for that. Just move over to the final word from Thorsten. How do you see it from, let's say, the development, what you have in mind in the next 10 years?
First of all, I'm quite optimistic when it comes to the competition, let's say, between fossil and non-fossil. I've seen the electricity auctions in Brazil completely free, and what happened was that wind and solar is simply the cheapest. So it becomes cheaper by the progression of the learning curve, and it's so much quicker to go renewable than it is with the big 15 years time installations we need for the traditional refineries. And then philosophically, it's not, we don't have to know so much which is every step. It's for now maybe enough to do some no regret actions, and as long as we know what we should not do, we are already quite wise. So as Samia said it, there's room for everyone, and I think there is room for a world trading of commodities based on green hydrogen and derivatives, and there is also a lot of circular economy possibilities. And if we give it free rein, people might become very creative and create things that we cannot imagine today with PTX, because potentially with PTX you can do anything that today is provided by oil, gas, and coal at any place in the world. You can produce polyethylene granulate right next to your factory of coffee machines if you want. All you need is electricity and air. And that is too expensive today, that's correct. But this, I think, with the progression of the learning curve will work. And the motto might be, while you're small, try things out and play around, and things will come about. Quite optimistic that people have the creativity.
Okay, thank you very much for this positive view. And with this, I think I will terminate or finalize or close the session for tonight, and close also the, let's say, webinar series for this winter term. I first of all, I would like to thank again the 4 speakers of this evening. I think we learned quite a lot and get really good overview about the different ongoing activities, also the differences between different countries, which I found very interesting and very enlightening. And of course, I would like to thank my colleague from Tunisia, who supported us in making this happening. This is Shokri Aslush. And last but not least, I would, of course, like to thank Wolfram Tuschewski, especially, and additionally Felix Mendler, for taking care that everything works out technically without any problems and challenges. Sometimes we had some problems with the connection, but this is out of our influence. At least as long as we have influence on the system, it works nicely. So thanks a lot to both of them for this. And you can, let's say, read and download the different sessions on the webpage, and they are still on YouTube because all the presenter agreed that it's available on YouTube. And if we have the PDFs from the presentation. You can download them from our homepage. So if they're not there, then we don't have it. If we have it, then it's there, so you can use it. And with this, I would again like to thank the different organizers. This is on the Tunisian side. It's a GIZ in Tunisia. It's, let's say, the University of Carthago, and it's the Tunisian Green Hydrogen Association on the German side. It's the VDI, Verein Deutscher Ingenieure here in Hamburg. It's Hamburg University of Technology, of course, my home university, as well as the Energieforschungsverbund here in Hamburg. So thank you very much for them, and thank you very much to all of us. I wish everybody a beautiful summer. Enjoy yourself and don't get burned if the temperature is too high, you know. And I wish you all the very best. And we think if there is a chance to, let's say, make a wrap up again in the next winter time, this is not fully clear yet. We'll discuss about this. If we decide to go forward, we will, let's say, inform you via the same email distribution list, what you know already. And with this, again, thanks to everybody. Enjoy the evening. Don't work too hard. Enjoy the summer. And maybe we see each other again next year, same place, same time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.